Right, hello senior theatre class, how's it going? Love you all, miss you long time. Okay, so we're starting script writing, and the first task is basically what actually is a script. And most of you, all of you, you all kind of know what a script is innately, because we've been working with them for, 5 years for some of you, or a couple of years for some of you. So you all have an idea of what it is, that there's dialogue. So there's conversation between two characters or more, or sometimes monologue where it's just one person speaking. And then there's directions about what it is that should be happening at any one point of time. This is a script of a very controversial play which I thoroughly enjoyed, and you should totally go see it. What you'll see if we open it up on any portion, what we've got is we've got an act, we've got a scene, we've got a location or a setting, then we've got some stage directions, and then you've got some character names and dialogue. So if we would have a look at what some of these stage directions are, what we've got is Albus is asleep in a hospital bed. Harry sits, troubled, beside him. Above them is a picture of a concerned, kindly man. Harry rubs his eyes, stands and walks around the room, stretching his back. Then he meets the eyes with the painting, which looks startled to be spotted, and Harry looks startled back. Professor Dumbledore? Good evening, Harry. I've missed you. Whenever I've dropped in on the headmistress lately, your frame's been empty. Ah, well, I do like to pop into my other portraits now and then. Will he be all right? I mean, the actual dialogue doesn't stand up when it's just standing by itself, but when you see the full production, oh, how it stands up. So what you'll notice with the dialogue is that these are conversations that happen between normal people. Like when we go walking around, we don't tend to say things that you get in creative writing, such as, the sky is as blue as a blue balloon held by a child at the A&P show on a Saturday evening in October. But you do when you're doing creative writing. You just don't do it in a script writing, because we don't know what's going on in somebody's head. People don't tend to walk around saying, I feel so angsty and afraid all the time. No, they just don't. They need to do something rather than say something about it, if that makes any sense whatsoever. One of my script writing tutors said that in order to be a stage script, particularly more than a regular piece of creative writing, is it needs to be crude. There needs to be some skin in the game. There needs to be something there that you can't get if you're just writing as a short story. It's all very well and good to describe the falling leaves and how they crunch underfoot. And I remember once when I was 7 walking along the same road. But in a script, it all happens in the here and now, much like a conversation between people in the real world. That I say something, you've never heard it before, your response to it is your original thought at that moment. Each line changes something about somebody. So the hardest part about script writing is generally finding the dialogue. What is it that the two people are going to be saying? And how do you get away from doing the narration? Having a character who is a narrator saying things like, it was a Saturday morning in June. I walked into the house to find the dead body on the kitchen floor. I knew immediately it was my wife. I mean, you can do it, but it's a cheap trick. How do you show that there's a dead body on the floor without saying it? Door opens. Honey, I'm home. Honey, something smells good. Are you in the kitchen, dear? You're on the floor. I can't resuscitate. It's not necessarily any better, but it's definitely more of a stage script. So your challenge for this particular task, if you are a year 12, you're writing one scene. And if you are a year 13, you're writing a short play, so about 10-ish minutes. Generally speaking, I look at it this way, that if you're writing one scene, think about the whole play. You can write more than one scene and then just submit one to me. That's perfectly fine, because you're going to have the same task. Sometimes it's much harder to write one scene than it is to write the whole play. Think in terms of three scenes. What's something that could be happening? You're all going to pick an influential New Zealander in some way. So somebody that you can find on the Dictionary of New Zealand Biography online, where there's heaps of really interesting people and some really famous people. I would say try not to go for somebody like Richie McCaw, who's famous for doing the rugby, because that's not going to make a very interesting play to watch. Unless you're really into rugby, I suppose. Even then, it's just not going to be that interesting, because the conversation then becomes, oh, Richie, are you ready for the Rugby World Cup? I am indeed ready for the Rugby World Cup. I'm going to beat those Springboks. That's a team, right? Yeah. Willie will correct me because he's Sportsman of the Year. Willie. Pick somebody that's either interesting to you in that they are doing something that you're interested in, or interesting in general, but not someone who's so completely famous that there's so much about them. For instance, David Longy. Perfect characterization, that's not a word. Prime Minister for a long period of time, did a lot of things, involved in a lot of stuff, but you wouldn't want to cover his entire life. You might want to look at some part of him in the nuclear movement. You might not. You might then want to focus on just the snap election that he won off Robert Muldoon. It doesn't need to be a big thing. So the most important thing to start with before we get to our first sort of hangout session, which will be on Monday next week, is pick somebody. If you can't come up with somebody, that's not the end of the world. I can help you come up with somebody. But if you can give me some ideas about the sort of things that you're interested in, or the kind of people that you might be interested in, and then we'll find somebody that falls within that category that you can look at. So you want somebody who has done something. Because in order to create a scene, it's nice and easy to have someone, even if you've got Sir Edmund Hillary climbing Mount Everest. If you're a year 12, your scene can easily be that moment where Sir Edmund Hillary gets to the top of the mountain with Sherpa Tenzing. It doesn't need to be elaborate and deep and meaningful. It just has to be staged. If you're a year 12, if you're a year 13 and you've got to do more than one scene, it could be the moments leading up to the scaling of the mountain, or it could be starting with the scaling of the mountain, and where do you go with the rest of your life after you've done the biggest thing in the world? Because he went on and did things that he would much rather be remembered for. So that's your first task. Come up with a person and keep thinking about what actually is a script. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be setting you a really short creative writing prompt to participate in every day, which should take around about 5-10 minutes to complete. They're going to feel like they're completely ridiculous, but if you can give it a go, the hardest part about writing is actually just writing. So the more practice you get in just writing stuff, the easier it's going to be to write the dialogue. So there'll be a challenge every day, and there's going to be some points where we'll try and get together and talk about stuff. And then hopefully, if this goes on for far too long, we'll end up with using those Google Meetups to have a conversation and to read some scripts back and forth between everybody and stuff like that. If it doesn't go on too long, which is what I'm hoping for, we'll be back at school and we'll be able to have a look at everybody's scripts, and we'll be able to check whether or not they're performable by doing a rehearsed reading of them. All right, thank you, my lovelies. And so pick a person, Dictionary of New Zealand Biography online on the Tiara website, or just know somebody, or if you have no idea of where to start looking, send me a message with some things that you're interested in and we'll find you a person. And then we're going to either write one scene or one short play if you're a year 13. If you're Jade Walker, ignore everything I've already said. We'll finish your script from last year.